Good evening. Today is September 10th, 2024. Welcome to the San Marino Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Here's our board president, Shelley Ryan.
Thank you, Kwok. There is nothing to report out in closed session. This evening, we are opening up our session. It is approximately 7:05. I'd like to do roll call. Mrs. Lamb? Here. Mrs. Chong? Here. Mrs. Gill? Here. Mr. Lamb? Oh, Mr. Chang?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ryan, I, and Ms. Ta. Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Lena Richter, who will introduce our student leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, President Ryan. This evening, we have the pleasure of inviting Jonathan Hughes, a fantastic 8th grade Huntington Middle School Fox, and I recently learned an ASB president, to lead the board in the salute to the flag this evening, and then later share a little bit about himself and introduce any guests that he may have here with him tonight, and a fan club, as I can see as well. So Jonathan, welcome.
All right, Jonathan, come on up.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Good evening, SMUSD school board members. I am Jonathan Hughes, the Huntington Middle School ASB president. During my time at HMS, I've been fortunate to have so many extracurricular activities to choose to participate in. For 3 years, I've been part of the intramural and travel flag football program, as well as the track and field team for 2 years. In addition, I joined intramural soccer and intramural tennis because later in life, I will not have opportunities like these as well as much time to learn and have fun. In 6th grade, I was in beginning Spartan band, and in 7th grade, I was a part of 7th and 8th grade wind ensemble, as well as HMS jazz band. Now, as an 8th grader, I take Spanish so I can be prepared for San Marino High School. I'm so thankful for all the opportunities that I and any SMUSD student are able to partake in. At HMS, anyone is able to be a part of VAPA and any clubs. You could participate in any amount of sports while relaxing at a lunch hangout every day. In the Avery and Andy Barth complex, whether it is the locker rooms, the main gym, or even the gym's wrestling room, a student here is lucky to be able to use this extraordinary complex. However, our other classrooms and facilities could definitely use an upgrade. If a student is struggling with our strong academic program, they can get help they need through after-school support programs, online tutoring and learning resources, and even one-on-one sessions with their teachers. Furthermore, HMS has activities throughout the year, such as music performances, such as band, orchestra, and choir, as well as October's Huntington Breakfast, this year Harry Potter themed. These are intriguing events open to everybody to join in and support the community. To conclude, HMS isn't just a school focused on academics, but is built on extracurricular activities and resources for everybody. Thank you.
Before you sit down, we'd like you to come right up here. We have a certificate that we're going to present you with, expressing our sincere appreciation for you leading us in the flag salute this evening and for telling us about your experiences at Huntington Middle School. You are very well spoken and we sincerely appreciate you representing Huntington. So we're going to take a picture. Then after we take this picture, we're going to get another one with your fan club and your principal and your parents and Ms. Keto. Thank you. Okay, great. Can I have mom and dad come up and let's get ASP to come up here as well. And yes, please, just one.
Well, because I had my shirt, I had to cover up the shirt. There you go. You don't block somebody who's sort of like. Do my little. Thank you.
One, two. One, two. One shot.
You're sitting on your camera. Okay.
Jonathan, thank you. Great job. Thank you, Ms. Keto. Thank you, HMS ASB. What they called ASB?
Yeah, ASB. That's awesome.
I didn't know
Great
if it's
support.
ASB.
A lot of ASB. Okay.
That was nice, yeah.
All right, that was half the audience. And so with our 4 remaining people, you guys are going to have to participate a little bit more. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Gill. Thank you, Mrs. Lamb. Roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, and Ms. Ta.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion has passed for our agenda. Next, I would like to do approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the August 27th, 24 meeting minutes?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chong. Thank you, Mr. Chang. Roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Chong,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, and Ms. Ta.
Aye.
All right, student vote. Motion has passed for the approval of the minutes. Public comment. The Board of Education has adopted Board Policy 9323B to ensure the public's right to be heard in any matters pertaining to the San Marino Unified School District. Persons who wish to provide public comment will have 3 options to submit public comments. First, you may submit through an online form. As of this afternoon at 3:30, there were no submissions. Request to speak during the meeting via Zoom. Quoc, if you could open up and see if there are any Zoom members.
We do have 2 attendees.
All right.
Mm. Communications from the audience regarding matters not on the agenda or items in the consent or information sections. Please provide your comments now. For items in the action section of the agenda, please provide your comments prior to the board beginning discussion on those items. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand icon to make a request. If you're dialing in from home, please dial *9 to make a request. We have 26 seconds left. We have no request for public comments.
Thank you so much, Quoc. And next, request to speak during the meeting in person via the public comment card.
We have none of the.
All right, there are no comment cards at this time. Consent section. Do I have a motion to approve the consent section 8A through 8D?
I move to approve the consent section 8A through D.
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Gill. Thank you, Mrs. Lamb. And the consent section 8A to 8D has been approved. Let's do roll call. Miss. Oh, you had a question? I'm sorry.
We have the 8th grade Pally trip in there, and I'm just wondering if we have any sort of, I assume if it gets pushed on, then everything will just sort of get pushed on and we'll figure it out, right?
I see
We're
Miss
approving it pending.
Miss Haslett nodding her head. She's nodding her
Yeah.
head. All right, so with that, did I have a motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Second. Just need
And a second. Thank you, Mrs. Gill. Thank you, Mrs. Shaw. Roll call, Mrs. Lamb. Okay, second Lamb. Okay, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. Shawn,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, and Ms. Ta.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion has passed for that section. Communication from the student board member? No, we're doing communications. I've missed it. All right. I'm moving on to the communication section. This is 9, communication from the Board of Education. Mrs. Lamb, would you like to start for us?
Sure, thank you. On August 29th, I had the pleasure of attending the Chinese Club Mixer for new families. A big thank you to the Chinese Club for hosting and making both new and returning families feel very welcomed. It was great to see everyone come together. On August 30th, I attended the Zero Eyes AI camera presentation, which was very informative and well attended by the district's leadership and SMPD. A drill took place during this presentation, giving us a chance to witness the AI technology in action. It put me at ease knowing our schools are using advanced tools to keep our kids safe, especially given the recent tragic event at a high school in Georgia. The collaboration between our schools and law enforcement is crucial and very reassuring. And although it's technically fall, we are currently in this heat wave. I wanted to take a moment to express my appreciation to all the principals for keeping our kids safe and comfortable during this hot weather, which included moving around the kids during recess, indoors, even lunch indoors. Very much appreciated. And also a special thanks to Gil and the team for their quick response to our AC system. So we had a mishap in Carver with the AC not working, and they measured the blacktop at 155 degrees. So big thanks to Gil and the team for working it through and making sure that AC is up and running. And lastly, on September 6th, I attended the Measure M campaign kickoff along with the entire board and our executive team. Measure M is a very critical step towards improving our school's infrastructure, and I'm very excited for all of us to learn more about the impact of Measure M and to just create dialogue and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lamb. Mrs. Chong.
Thank you. I'll speak to a couple other activities as well. Went to the football game last week, which was hot. But we were triumphant. Kudos to those band and football players and coaches and staff for hanging in there and getting the job done. I also wanted to just point out a number of really exciting things happening with our alumni this fall. I don't know what it is. There's something in the air when one person has an idea, everybody else has the same idea. So we've been seeing a lot of great alumni stories coming out, whether they are the vignettes we saw at Back to School Night from the foundation. There's an upcoming Hall of Fame induction next week. We're seeing some videos that Mr. Michael Rizzo of our community put out that really just highlighted the stories of people who either went here or sent their kids here and how San Marino really helped them become the citizens that we really strive to make. So I really enjoyed seeing those stories and hearing about them, and especially seeing how those generations have persisted over the years with the support of everyone in the community. So as both a board member and as a parent, I'm very, very grateful to reap the benefits of all of those accumulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Gill.
I attended many of the same things, the HMS open house, the Zero Eyes presentation, which was very well presented and also just does give me a sense of comfort for our level of preparedness, and also just being able to deter these actions maybe ahead of time, especially if it's out there that we have this technology, that our kids are that much safer for it. I want to thank all of our administrators for working overtime on all this heat, keeping the kids cool and safe in that sense. And then additionally, This past week, I spoke with Principal Hazlett and the Chief of Police about addressing the safety issues at drop off at HMS especially. I know that we've had a lot of near misses on West, and they've really just worked collaboratively, and it seems like we're getting that under control, which is great. There's a lot of different aspects to safety that we have to look at, and I think that it's great that we all seem to be on top of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gill. And Mr. Chang?
Besides those board member mentioned, especially I want to emphasize in the September 6th kickoff reception for the Major M. Thank you for all the board member and also prospective board member and all the executive team and for your generosity, you know, the write a check as a support for the campaign. I think that's enough for this campaign. Secondly, September 7, I go to support for cheerleader. So I have a special experience for car wash. Usually I go to the commercial, yeah, I join in, but this time is different. So I had to move 3 times because they work hard. They want to polish for every angle. So thank you for the student parent and the cheerleader. And also September 4, I participate for City of Hope conference. I just continue to help the pursue any internship for the future our program at the Semolina High School. Yeah. So I got one verbal commitment. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope the yeah, professor can remember after 2 years. And last night, you know, the one of citizen, you know, they text me. I thought that they need to address to the city mayor, but city mayor said they want the school board to know. So what happened, you know, this is also the safety issue. So on the corner of the Huntington Drive and the Delma, so then already have 2 incidents. I think the parent fear is very dangerous because during the red light, the red light, they make a right turn. So scare the 2 family. So they they addressed to me. I said I will report to superintendent. Superintendent will address to the police department. I thought that this is a city issue, not a school issue, but they are our students. So definitely, I said I also very concerned. So I will report back to the school district. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. And it's so important to also recognize how closely we work with all of our service providers, police, fire, and the like, in terms of keeping our community safe. And I like the fact that together, our administrative team, our cabinet, our principals, and assistant principals all supported the students this week. It was pretty rough with the fires and the air quality as well as the heat. And then moving the kids around, relocating them or having them out, all the messaging that had to go out. And so thankfully, everyone is safe and that we're able to provide continuous service. And so I'm thankful for the information that's been provided so far on Measure M. And then, so I also, along with my board members, attended the football game, the kickoff. I continue to volunteer at the Huntington Hospital, as well as in community nights here at San Marino Community Church. So with that, I want to maybe turn this over to our student board member who might want to continue with some of the reports.
Thank you. So last week, starting off with Carver, they began their weekly walking school bus to school on Fridays. And then both Carver and Valentine had their 3rd grade bike safety rodeos. HMS had their back to school night, and SMHS had their first home game on Thursday, and we won 23-22 going into overtime. So really, really exciting. And we also just finished our NWEA testing on Monday. And in the coming weeks, Carver will have their picnic next Wednesday on the 18th. HMS has their first dance this Friday. San Marino is going to have a lockout drill tomorrow. SMHS Fan is hosting a Seas Candy fundraiser for the rest of the month, and girls volleyball has their Fluff Ice fundraiser on Thursday. We also have our back to school night and a lunchtime college fair this Thursday, and SMHS has an away football game at Crescenta Valley on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tom. All right, next we have communication from the superintendent, Dr. Linda Delatorre.
Thank you, President Brian, members of the Board of Education, student board member, executive team. As you've mentioned, these past 2 weeks have been somewhat challenging with our deteriorating air quality due to the wildfires that are progressively getting worse and the extreme heat that we've had to endure, along with our aging air conditioning units breaking down at several of the schools, the worst of which was Carver Elementary, as Board Member Lamb mentioned. In speaking with the Director of Maintenance and Operations, I wanted the board to be aware that he informed me that room 114, which is the orchestra room at Huntington Middle School, is costing us approximately $36,000 to repair. Room 308, which is sixth grade classroom at Huntington Middle School, is costing us $21,000 to repair. Valentine is actually not costing us very much, since we invested so heavily in the replacement of many of the oldest air conditioning units on that campus over the summer. We spent about $1 million of one-time ESSER funds that were intended to be used for the improvement of air quality for teachers and students in all of our classrooms. The $1 million really benefited our schools, the two campuses, Huntington Middle School and Valentine, but it wasn't enough to replace all of those units, and so that's what we're experiencing. Carver's air conditioning is costing us approximately $30,000 when all is said and done. However, we know we will likely need to replace that unit at Carver. Ultimately, we keep repairing it, and it's on its last leg. So it's going to cost us anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000, and that's for the equipment, not including any installation or labor costs at this point. So we will keep the board informed about that. Much was said in the area of school safety, which is, I know, the board's #1 priority, also my priority. We recently had a swatting incident the day after the tragic shooting in Georgia, and that happened at Temple City. I will tell you that our police department was exceedingly responsive. We didn't call them and ask them to come out. They did so instantaneously. They went to all 4 schools to make sure that our campuses were safe and secure. Then they came up here and reported to me that all campuses were safe and secure, which I really felt was above and beyond. So we're very fortunate to have the close partnership with our local law enforcement agency that we have. And I was going to mention the parent concerns, but Mr. Chang already did a beautiful job mentioning the concerns at Del Mar and Huntington Drive, which I will also be mentioning to our chief of police. Wanted to let the board know that school site tours are being planned, and these are our facility tours for the community on October 12th from 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. Each one of our wonderful principals will lead the tours at their respective schools, and our director of maintenance will be on hand to assist. Our entire executive team will also be there to answer any questions and help provide assistance as needed. A question that keeps coming up, and I just wanted to be responsive and provide this information to the board, is tell me a little bit more about the bond oversight committee and how that process works. So I wanted to give the board some critical information. The initial members of the oversight committee shall be appointed by this body, the Board of Education. That is one of your roles and responsibilities, and you will need to do that if the bond passes within 60 days after you certify the corresponding election results as required by law. So after the board certifies the election results, you have 60 days to appoint members to a bond oversight committee. And I just wanted to talk with you a little bit about the composition of that committee and some of the duties and responsibilities that that committee will have. So the committee will consist of a minimum of 7 members with 5 requirements as follows. 1 member active in a business organization representing the business community located within the district. 1 member active in a senior citizens organization. 1 member active in a bona fide taxpayers organization. 1 member who is the parent or guardian of a child enrolled in the district. And 1 member who is both a parent or guardian of a child enrolled in the district and active in a parent-teacher organization and or PTA. The 2 remaining members will be at-large members and considered community positions. So just to give you a sense of some of the responsibilities, this committee will prepare and publish an annual report. They must hold meetings at least once a year. Often they do it more frequently than that. While the open meeting requirement doesn't explicitly reference the Ralph M. Brown Open Meeting Act, most school districts and oversight committees have interpreted the need to establish that oversight committee meetings should be held and noticed in accordance with Brown Act provisions. So most committee members will either need to be aware of the Brown Act or be trained on the Brown Act. Additionally, the major constitutional requirements of a bond oversight committee is to determine whether the district is spending the bond monies for construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation, or replacement of school facilities, including the furnishing and equipping of school facilities. Advise the public as to whether a district is spending the bond monies for the purposes specified and not for any other purpose. So basically to make sure that the money is being spent as it should be and as was promised to the voters. Determine whether a district is spending the bond monies for specific school facility projects listed in the bond measure information given to the public prior to the vote. Receive and review copies of an annual independent performance audit to ensure that the funds have been expended only on the specific projects listed. Receive and review copies of an annual independent financial audit of the proceeds from the sale of the bonds until all those proceeds have been expended for the school facilities projects. And that would be listed in the bond measure. In short, the Education Code requires the Oversight Committee to review and report to the public whether the projects identified to be funded by the bond money are being spent as promised and efficiently. I wanted to end on another topic altogether. I was thinking about this today. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of the devastating events of September 11th, 2001. On this day, the district will pause, remember, and honor the nearly 3,000 lives lost, the incredible bravery of the first responders, and the countless acts of heroism that unfolded on that day. As a community, let us come together in solidarity, paying tribute to those who were affected by this tragic event and recommitting ourselves to the values of unity, compassion, and resilience. We encourage everyone to take a moment tomorrow to reflect, remember, and honor the memory of those we lost. And I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. Stephen, if you're listening, I hope you realize that Quack is not on this computer. So texting me or contacting me is of no use. So he's contacting me. So I'm like, okay. Anyways, it's okay. Next we have information item. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Principal Wolf to present the SMHS board goals.
Thank you, President Ryan, members of the board, and Superintendent Dilatori and Cabinet. I am happy to do our presentation of the board goals this evening. I would like to start, however, by saying that I'm going to have to go home tonight and reevaluate my youth because I clearly did something wrong because I never had a fan club come and participate. That young man, I think, has a long, healthy, fun career ahead of himself. All right. Okay, so when I joined the district last year, the goals had already been established by Principal Kurtenbach, and I was able to adjust them a tiny little bit. So I was happy this year that Ms. Penelora and I had the year to look at them, and then we're able to be with the cabinet over the summer when we spent some time developing these. And there are a few that are ongoing that were there last year, but there are a lot that are quite new. And the first one is one that we're really fortunate with, because that was a kind of the glaring issue at SMHS last year and the previous years, was how easily it was to access the campus during the day through the foyer. And even though it's an unusual design for a school, you do have schools that are open, but it's rare where there would be a staircase before the office so that somebody could actually access classrooms without being seen by the people in the office. So I'm really happy to say that with the district's support, we were able to put the buzzer system onto those doors. The doors are now locked as soon as the bell rings in the morning. And we have a security station out in front. So Ms. Kiros is now stationed in the foyer instead of inside the office. And we have a rotational schedule that she goes on, so she can still go out onto the campus when she does. Our clerks are made aware, and then they man the buzzers. And in addition, Ms. Penelora has created a new system for lunchtime where the students actually drop off their ID cards and pick them back up when they re-enter the campus, the seniors. So we're much more cognizant of who is leaving the campus and returning to the campus this year. There's a picture of the wellness center that we were able last year through the PFA grant to add some very nice furniture to. Ms. Al-Hindi is continuing to work with our counselors more on creating systems so that when we do have students who are being seen by the wellness center or being seen by their regular counselor, that they're in communication about that. The restorative practices training is going to another cohort of teachers, but in addition, our counselors are being trained this year, which I think is excellent, because a lot of times the counselors are the ones that are aware when there are especially small issues, possibly between students or between students and adults, that they can use some of the skills that they learn in restorative practices to solve those problems. The SEL curriculum that is being done in homeroom will be enhanced this year because we added a senior homeroom 1 day a week. So last year our seniors were missing some of that, but this year on Mondays, seniors participate in homeroom.
What does that stand for?
SEL.
SEL. Oh my God, I just blanked on the
Social
curriculum.
emotional.
Thank you. Social emotional learning. So many acronyms. So a lot of the lessons on SEL, our counselors would do as a push-in, but prior to homeroom, they were doing as assemblies. And it's so much better in a group of 20 kids than trying to do 200 or 300 at once. And then finally, Ms. Penelora and I are doing something new this year. Well, new for San Marino. I've done this for a long time. I had a former principal who coined these talks that we're doing as due process, which gives us a little time to talk about the 14th Amendment with our students too. So it's a learning activity for them as well. But we call them due process because we want students to know what some of the major issues are that they could possibly wind up in some trouble for. That we don't want them to get into trouble. This was spurred by some of the issues we had last year at sporting events, et cetera. And so now we are spending the beginning of the year speaking to every homeroom. It's going to take us about 5 weeks. And we are having a conversation with students about bullying, online issues, behavior at sporting events, et cetera. And they've been very responsive. We've shared some of the issues that happened last year, and it's gratifying to hear a lot of our students say, oh my God, I can't believe somebody would behave that way. So hopefully this will have a very positive impact on our school. Okay, goal number 2. So we had Title I money last year and we do not this year, which just means that we have to be more creative about finding other means to do some of the things that are important to the school. I'm very thankful to Dr. Richter who always lets us know what other grants are possibly available. So one of those areas, for example, we spent Title I money on last year was doing in-person tutoring. And so we can't pay for it that way, but we found other ways to do it so that we will still be able to offer that service to our students, in addition to the tutor.com. So we will be doing both. The being able to share and promote the school's activities. So I am very active on Instagram, and a lot of my posts get forwarded, and so that's really great. But with Dr. Delatorre's help and her vision of creating a system of interns at our campus, now we have students who are going to be doing this for the district. And I think that that's going to, because anytime students do something, way more people follow them. So I think that that's going to really spread all of the great things that are happening in the district. In fact, I just had that group of interns come to my office yesterday and film a TikTok with me. I don't understand what I filmed with them at all, but they assure me it's going to be very popular. And then, of course, tutor.com, we just had the training for our teachers today at our faculty meeting after school. And I had a few teachers say that they are so impressed that the district is able to offer this service to our families, because they had no idea really what it involved. When we said it was online tutoring, I don't think people realized the quality of it. Dr. Richter and I have seen this in Glendale before, but the quality of what a student can do when they log on to tutor.com, and their ability to have, for example, Desmos on the screen when they do math, that they can manipulate a graphing calculator or do a geometry problem with a tutor live, is really amazing. And it's a phenomenal service. And when you think about how many of our families pay private tutors, but then our families who can't afford that option, and now we've leveled the playing field for them. So it's really a fantastic service for them. And we've already had, I didn't write it down, but since we've gone live in 2.5 weeks, we've had more than 150 hours of tutoring sessions already just at the high school. Okay, service of value and appreciation. The refurbished the staff lounge was on there last year, and it didn't get done for a variety of reasons, but it happened this summer. Some of you have already seen our new staff lounge. Our teachers are very appreciative of this. We've already had way more people who are now coming and spending time together, whereas before they might have just stayed in their classrooms. So I think it's already having a positive effect on camaraderie amongst the staff. Again, we are trying to do much more through social media. I think that is already one of the reasons why we had more students this year come to us from the middle school instead of going to private schools, because they are seeing the word is getting out there. For example, the number of graduates last year that went to Ivy schools, the positive test scores, the fun stuff that we post. I think all of that is convincing students to stay with us, which is great because our enrollment is up so much. Reward students for academic success. I promised the juniors last year that if they did either improved on their CAF scores or beat La Cañada, one or the other. We don't know about La Cañada yet, but I'm confident that we did beat them because our scores did go up so much, that I would reward them. And we've already started. I have given away 200 Angels tickets already to this year's seniors. I have had a former alumni parent just donate 2 very expensive seats for the Dodger game in 2 weeks. And those are going to be drawn from one lucky winner tomorrow. And so the rest of our students, our younger students, are seeing us do this. And hopefully this will, when our juniors take the CASP again this year, they will see that we did take it seriously and reward last year's students for being successful. Same thing for our teachers. We are trying to do more with our social committee. Miss Penelora and I barbecued for the staff again this year. Some of you joined us. Hopefully I cooked your burger correctly. We are doing, again, PTA paid for all the supplies for that. And apparently I've already been asked to barbecue at one of the football games. I thought that was just Miss Shawn that did the Colby beef or whatever you did last year. So I don't know how I got roped into that. And last year at the second semester, we started doing Rotary Student of the Month presentations, which were a lot of fun to do, to be able to present our amazing students to Rotary in the community. And so next month will be our first one for Rotary, and we will do that all this year. And then our last goal with global citizens, and this of course is where a lot of our academics are. We are continuing with our UDL cohort of teachers. In fact, I just received 7 new volunteer teachers this year to be on our committee that goes around and does the classroom observations of their peers. I thought I was gonna have to do a lot of arm twisting to get people to a new group of people to join that, but they recognize the value of that professional development, and a lot of people really wanted to do it. So we're really happy about that. Using data, just like last year, our teachers had to look at their CASP data and their NWEA data and then provide a plan to me by department of what they were going to do to address the areas of weakness. Honestly, we didn't have a lot of areas of weakness, which is really great because then they can really concentrate on the 2 or 3 areas where we could move some students into the next band of improvement. I bought a copy of Visible Learning, which is Hattie's research for every teacher this year. So we are going to be doing a professional learning community book study with that book. So each month when we have our faculty meetings, we're going to be covering a piece of that book, which is fantastic because it kind of continues the UDL conversation and looks at the research that has been done at schools all over mostly the United States, but really all over the world. And then lastly, the student voice. Dr. Delatorre has started her student panel at our school, but I learned from Dr. Ekjian at Glendale how important it was to also convene those as a principal. And so we're going to have our first panel towards the end of the first semester, and it's actually going to concentrate on grading. So now that I've actually broached the subject with our teachers this summer, we're going to get our students' opinions on that so that we can share that with our teachers as well. And then the last part was the community service requirement. During coffees last year, I started talking to our parents about this, and they were pretty receptive. I believe Ms. Shaw was at one of those meetings. And so we are going to look to this year modifying our community service requirement a little. We're going to keep the old one so that we're not, for students who want to do that, have already committed to all those rules, they're not going to have to change. But I'm going to add a new component to it where they can reduce their number of hours, but their hours all have to be in one place, designed to do one project to help people. And I think a lot of students will actually want to do that. And I think the reason really why we want to do that is because we keep hearing from our college recruiters that that's what they're looking for in the essays, is that students can talk about making a difference in the community, not having a hodgepodge of hours all over the place. So look for that later this year. And I believe that concludes my report. Yes.
Thank you, Ben. I had actually heard that if the kids did well on the test, that you were going to shave your head.
I believe you heard that incorrectly, Mrs. Ryan. I think you're confusing me with the previous principal who did not have my hair. Because I have heard, and I don't know if this is an old wives' tale, but I've heard that once you shave it off, it doesn't always grow back all the way. And I'm just not taking that risk.
All right. Any questions or go ahead, Mr.
Can you go back to page 2? Yeah.
Second slide,
That
one.
Yeah. Okay. The last 2, they mentioned use of vans. Do we have a vans?
Yes, we were able to purchase 3 vans last year.
My van's just outside. What are you talking about?
And they've really been a huge boon because there are times when we don't have enough, when we have a small team or a group of students going to an away game or something else where we don't have to purchase a bus, the vans save us a lot of money.
So who are eligible to drive?
So faculty members have to drive. They're easy to drive. They're regular vans. They're not.
They have the different license.
No. Yeah,
It's not
they're just
truck.
regular minivans that have been outfitted for space inside. And our faculty members have to, present proof of insurance and get approved through the business office before they're okay to drive them.
And those vans, they insured by
the district, yes.
district, and then they cover for the student activity, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jane.
Can you just speak to, I'm not sure what that is referring to, the loss of Title I funds? this year?
So we didn't qualify this year for Title I, we did last year. And that's kind of not unusual in a school like San Marino where it only takes 1 or 2 students to be on the free and reduced lunch list to make the targeted Title I list. And this year we didn't make it.
Is it a percentage threshold or?
It is.
Go ahead.
Just 2 quick things. Some feedback on tutor.com from a high school parents. They love it. So, for instance, my friend's daughter was up late with chemistry, needed help with one question, was able to get on through Clever easily and got the help she needed and it was done. So it's great. So, so happy that we can offer that. The second thing is, I'm glad you brought up, grading with the student panel, because I would love to hear feedback later when you meet with them and about the citizenship grades. I feel like it's sort of atypical that we grade A through F on citizenship, and I really would like that at least brought into a conversation about satisfactory, non-satisfactory, because I think there is a bigger commentary on giving somebody an F in citizenship just because of tardies instead of problems, grades, things like that. So, yeah.
Well, I completely agree. But I also think on the same vein, for teachers out there, and I'm not saying our teachers necessarily, but any teachers who give academic Fs for things other than academics, right? So yeah, grading is a big nut to crack, because teachers are they're just repeating old patterns, and there's a lot new out there now to
I do
learn.
think that falls under too our restorative practices and how we can serve the whole child more.
Yep.
Joanna?
I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you.
I really like your idea about incorporating panels discussion, incorporating hearing all voices in regards to the grading policy, but Dr. Delatorre started it with her group, and I would love to see it in the middle school as well. And just hearing all voices and including them is really important. It really changes the tone of our campuses. So thank you for that, and thank you for all that you're doing. Is there any more? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wolf. Like to turn it over now to Dr. Lena Richter for the 24-25 enrollment update.
Thank you, President Ryan. It's a little difficult to follow such a fantastic presentation with such great news about our high school. But I think you will be just as pleased with the presentation on our district enrollment. So President Ryan, thank you, members of the board, student board member Chloe, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, and exec team who are here and virtual. As tonight, it's my pleasure to provide the board with a brief update on district enrollment this past year. As I share tonight's data, I just want to point out that it's important to note that enrollment continues to settle even to today. And so the data that I'll be sharing at tonight's presentation is as of August 30th. I would like to give a huge shout out to Claudia, our district registrar, Wendy, our district registrar, and our community liaison, Brenda, who have done such a fantastic job and truly worked day and night to support our families through the registration and enrollment process. And they've worked very closely with our principals and our teachers as well. So could not have done this without them. So at our last board meeting, our SMUSD principal presentations truly reflected the student and staff excitement as we launched into the 24-25 school year. As this slide illustrates, the excitement is also observed in our enrollment data. And I'm going to put these on because I can read a little bit better with these. District-wide enrollment data as of August 30th shows a total district enrollment of 3,069 students. This is not projected enrollment. These are students in their chairs in the classrooms. This is the first time in many years that we have seen enrollment numbers. Oh, thank you. You're enlarging it. In the 3,000s. Enrollment for the start of the 24-25 school year indicates an increase of 288 students more than 4 years ago at the end of the 2021 school year. 360 students more than the end of the 21-22 school year. 301 students more than the end of the 22-23 school year. And this year, 116 students more than the end of last school year. Carver and Valentine each demonstrated an increase in enrollment by 30 students each this year. It was funny, they both had the same number of students in this year. Huntington Middle School demonstrated an increase of 9 students, and San Marino High School demonstrated an increase of 47 students. So as you can see, the enrollment trajectory is quite positive over the last 5 years and continues to be so this year. On this slide, we see Carver's enrollment trends over the past 5 years. Carver's enrollment trajectory is very similar to the overall district enrollment trajectory, with a small decline in 21-22, followed by continuous growth all the way through this current school year, 24-25. We are pleased to see that Carver continues to grow over the past 4 years with increases of 68 students from 21-22 to 22-23, 87 students from 22-23 to 23-24, and now 30 students from last year, end of last year, to the start of the 24-25 school year. Again, noting that the data, with the exception of this year, 24-25, illustrates the last day of school of the previous year. Here we see enrollment trends for Carver by grade level. Again, seeing significant increases across all grade levels, but particularly in transitional kindergarten, where this year we added an additional TK class at Carver. When reviewing enrollment data across the years, we also observed consistency in enrollment by grade level cohorts. So we're not seeing a huge decline or even a small decline as students matriculate from one grade level to the next. School-wide totals over the past 5 years are seen at the very bottom of this chart. Here we see enrollment trends for Valentine over the past 5 years. Valentine also demonstrates a positive trajectory in enrollment over all the past 5 years without decline, showing an increase of 28 students from 2021 to 21-22, 42 students from 21-22 to 22-23, 8 students from 22-23 to 23-24, and as mentioned earlier, 30 students for the 24-25 school year when we compare it to the end of the last school year. And as you can see, that orange or light brown line continues to move up in a very positive trajectory. Here we see Valentine again, only illustrated by grade level and grade level cohorts. Again, we see strong growth in transitional kindergarten, where we also added a 3rd transitional kindergarten class at Valentine. And when we're observing enrollment numbers across the years, grade level cohort enrollment data also remain strong for Valentine. Once again, the school-wide totals are illustrated on this chart on the very bottom row. Here we see enrollment trends for Huntington Middle School, similar to overall district enrollment patterns, although we see a slight downward trend in enrollment from 2021 to 21-22, we are pleased to see an upward trajectory in enrollment over the past 4 years. And when comparing Huntington Middle School over these years, we observe, which is great news, an increase of 10 students from 21-22 to 22-23, an increase of 61 students from 22-23 to 23-24, and as mentioned earlier, an increase of 9 students from 23-24 to this current school year. Slide 8 is reflecting Huntington's enrollment by grade and cohort. When we review the numbers across the years, similar to the other schools, Huntington Middle School demonstrates consistent cohort enrollment data, so we're pleased to see that as well. And once again, we see the grade level and year totals at the very bottom. And then lastly, when looking at enrollment trends for San Marino High School, As Dr. Wolf mentioned earlier, although we see a slight decline in enrollment from 2022-23 to 23-24, we're pleased to see continued growth from the 22-23 school year all the way to the 24-25 school year, with an increase in enrollment of 29 and 47 students respectively. Once again, with the exception of 24-25 school year, the data reflects the end of the year enrollments for each of the preceding years. So as you can see, we had a couple years of decline, but that was immediately mitigated with a couple of years of strong enrollment increases. And this year, as mentioned earlier, we had 47 additional students when starting off the 24-25 school year. And this slide highlights enrollment for the high school by grade level cohorts. Overall, grade level enrollment remained positive, and we observed a larger incoming freshman class this past year. And then again, the totals are seen at the very bottom of this chart by year. So again, it's important to remember that registration is ongoing throughout the year and is subject to change. We believe it's subject to change for the positive. So again, enrollment presented in this presentation captures the data as of Friday, August 30th. And since then, we have enrolled, happy to say, 4 additional students at Carver, 5 additional students at Valentine, 5 additional students at Huntington Middle School, and 1 additional student at the high school. Lastly, this slide illustrates enrollment data delineated by the various type of inter-district permits. As you can see there across the top row, we have various types. The first one you see is SMUSD employee. Those are employees of our school district, teacher, classified, certificated faculty. We also have City of San Marino, who are employees of the city. They would be our police, our fire department, and so forth. We have business owners, someone who owns a business in the city of San Marino, which this year shows the largest increase in the number of permits when we compare it to last year. Other employment-related families or parents who may work for a business or a company in San Marino. Legacy permits, and these are students who are enrolled in our schools because their grandparents have applied for a legacy permit. They've lived in the city for 10 or more years. And so their grandchildren are attending our schools, and we're very proud to have them. And then lastly, our regular inter-district permits. And all of our numbers are listed at the very far right column with our total enrollment. And as you can see, again, very proud of the 3,069 students that we have enrolled in our district for the 24-25 school year. So overall, a very positive presentation to share with the board tonight. We're extremely pleased to see an increase in our enrollment, and it is a testament to the programs, the faculty, the students, the parents and the families and the community that we have here in San Marino. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I did not pull out the past meeting document, so because tonight the CBO is not here, so I'm thinking the issue.
He's virtual. He's here.
Oh,
He's here.
sorry,
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, you can text him.
I'm thinking. Hello. Yeah.
Oh, he's
No,
over there.
He's there.
Wires. He's in the picture.
Stephen, do you want to come on?
Well,
screen?
I'm thinking the budget preparation process. So the first question is that our projection is close to the number tonight you present, and the secondly, for budget preparation for to project the revenue we will get it. So how much?
So
Yeah.
I think answer some of your question. The district will get funded based on P2 ADA, which happens in the spring.
Yeah.
And so they'll look at our attendance and our enrollment and determine what percentage ADA we will be funded on.
Mhm.
So if we have a 97% ADA in the spring will get funded based on 97% of our enrollment. And so that's how that works. So we, as far as budget goes and whether or not we budgeted for that number, I believe, and we can confirm this with Stephen, that they are looking at where they thought we would be, because they have been working very closely in accounting with Dr. Richter's office in educational services and HR. They met consistently throughout the student enrollment period to monitor the number of students that were registering and enrolling. So I don't think we're going to be far off at all in terms of our budget. But really where the rubber meets the road is P2 ADA in the spring for this year.
Because of the last period, I think it's May revised in the state, right? So take a number to project the time for the number of students. So see how much
Yeah, this is a very positive trend for the school district. And I think that a lot of it can be attributed to the new state laws regarding transitional kindergarten and having our students be enrolled at an earlier age. That is really where we're getting that influx of student enrollment at the elementary. And you might want to talk just briefly about the new laws with respect to transitional kindergarten. We have like 3 classes at each school, right? We have 3 classes at each school. So we went from like years ago not having any transitional kindergarten kids to 3 classes at each school, so 6 sections.
Yes. And so the state has identified the need for early education for students. And so over the past 4 years, they've created almost a phased in approach to allowing our students to enter transitional kindergarten younger and younger each year. This year, for the 24-25 school year, students entering TK need to turn 5 by June 2nd. Next year, all 4-year-olds will be eligible for TK. They must turn 4 by September 1st. So we will have all transitional kindergartners at 4 years old. And I also want to speak a little bit about the high school with an increase of 40, at the time 47, but with the additional 48 student, I think that really speaks to not the early age, but the programs and the faculty and the instructional program that we have at the high school is so strong that we do have students coming back from private schools, students coming back from their home countries to come back to San Marino and attend San Marino schools.
I have a question about the inter-district transfer. Do you have data on the numbers for each school that you can share either today or next time?
I would have to see if we have it pulled by school. I'm not sure if we have it pulled by school, but we can double check.
Thank you. And another question I have related to that, is there data to reflect what that number is relative to other schools that have
Sorry.
data for in comparison to other schools that also accept inter-district transfers, like the percentage to the total enrollment for their numbers?
Sure. Okay. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, are inter-district numbers compared to neighboring school districts and their numbers? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
And, oh, sorry. I mean, to speak to that, if you'll go to that last slide, please.
Thank you.
959. So, I mean, that's less than 30%, which I feel like historically it has been around 30%. So it does seem that proportion
More than that.
is it? Oh,
It's the same as
you're
last
right,
year.
31.
31%,
yeah.
which was the percentage last year as well, but
Okay.
because enrollment also went up. If we received any additional inter-district kids, that also balanced the ratio.
Proportionately, it's
Proportionally, it's exactly
staying
the
the
same as
same.
last year.
okay.
Technically not.
No,
No.
it's a little higher.
It's smidge, which
A
would
smidge, yeah.
typically be
About
accounted for.
flat.
Well, my guess is it accounts for the fact that we've got legacy and
Legacy went up.
It kind of like
it all kind of
a little
balances
bit
out
add- yeah.
a bit. But it's, I mean, it's
31%.
hair.
Legacy
for both
numbers are
years,
going up, which is a good thing. We want our more senior population in San Marino
Mhm.
to be able to enroll their grandchildren in our schools. We see that as a tremendous
Absolutely.
benefit. It's also another way to engage some of our grandparents in the community. And so we've seen that number go up substantially since we first implemented legacy permit.
Yeah.
The business owners went up, what's the percentage? 22% this year?
The business owners went
This is
up, I actually
22%.
have it.
191 to 211.
The business owners went up 22
Yeah, it's on the
from
screen.
last year to this year.
Right. And so those are people in the city of San Marino that
Own
own
business.
businesses and they're treated like residents.
Correct.
So I was wondering if we could, do you have any information about Senator Portantino's Senate Bill 98 regarding his proposal to change it from ADA based to enrollment based? I think the last time they had originally floated that, it didn't necessarily help us because he was proposing that if it happened, you would have to spend more money on addressing absenteeism, which in any other district would be fine, except we have very low absenteeism, although
Right.
it is climbing. So do you know anything about the new,
I don't, and I'm gonna be quite honest, I haven't really followed that because it doesn't help our district. And the reason it doesn't help our district is in part due to what you said, but also our enrollment is, our attendance is so high that we don't really benefit from being funded based on enrollment versus ADA because our ADA is almost equal to our enrollment, if that makes sense.
it does, except I think last year we had our budget and then when we actually started looking at it, I think we were about $80,000 because it was about $68,000 because we saw some higher absenteeism in the lower grades. I think especially with TK kids, it's hard to get the TK, we always saw our highest absenteeism in our kindergarten. And I'm suspecting if we drilled down on it, we would probably see some absenteeism with our TK kids.
So interesting, because I'll tell you, Carver has been reporting their attendance to us. And they have almost perfect attendance even after the air conditioning wasn't working. He's almost at like 100%.
That's awesome.
Attendance. And so, and that would include TK and kindergarten and our elementary schools, we have just amazing attendance that no other school district can compete with.
So maybe we're rebounding from
Yeah.
the COVID absenteeism.
Our kids want to come to school. Our kids want to be on our campuses. And that is a great thing to have here that a lot of districts don't enjoy.
And that's evident by the number of parents who are enrolling their students in TK rather than keeping them and enrolling them next year in kindergarten.
That's good to hear. I was also wondering in terms of, so our overall number is rising back up, which is fantastic. But we're seeing a bigger growth, as you said, in our elementary campuses because we have the addition of our TK grade. And so our enrollment at our middle school and our high school, though rising incrementally, is relatively less in
Robust.
what's the word? Rate, I suppose, than our elementary schools. So my question has to do with what we're seeing the impact of that and the capacity of the school as a whole in being able to accommodate more students throughout the campus. So it's not necessarily the classroom I'm talking to, but more the capacity around the lunch, around the parking, around support staff. How have we been able to really get a feel for that? Because every year it's different, right? Because we have more kids than we did the last time.
Right. And the significance of meeting with accounting and HR and the principals multiple times throughout the enrollment and registration time period really allows us to get a better understanding of the capacity at the school, the capacity by grade level. Mary and I have had multiple conversations. Dr. Wolf and I have had multiple conversations because it's important that they also have input on their staffing, on their spaces. Even when we look at programs like expanded learning opportunity programs after school through Right at School, we look at space. Can we accommodate more students? And if we do, does that mean additional staffing? Because then there's that fine balance, right? Because you'll need additional staffing. So those meeting and collaboration points throughout the registration are key to really understanding what is the school able to accommodate with regards to staffing, spacing, parking, all of that. When we look at the number of students that are enrolling. This year, when we looked at the number of students in TK, we made a decision in partnership with the two elementary principals that do they have the space? Do they have the physical space and the staffing? We had to hire a different, additional teacher at each school to accommodate that additional classroom, and it worked out beautifully. They were able to accommodate it. And so having those meetings, I think, is key and essential because they may be able to identify a challenge at their school that we may not be aware of.
So when we're looking to plan then for next year, given that that age range moves another 2 months, 3 months, 4 months?
2 months.
2 months. And assuming that the kids are still out there, they didn't take a break being born during those months. We're gonna be looking at that question again and maybe even earlier, I would assume, just because we know they're out there, I think.
Yeah.
Now.
Yep, we may.
So one other thing to be, thinking about is, we already know that the portables that we have on our campuses, that we've had on our campuses for 2 decades are well beyond their expected lifespan. And if you, have the opportunity to walk our elementary campuses and just see what they look like from the exterior, they are deteriorating. And at Valentine, we have one portable with the floor being eaten by termites that we have tried to, get rid of every year. And there's a lot of water damage from, the torrential downpours that we had, not this past year, but the year before. And so we've had to replace rotting wood. We've had to cut, spaces out of the flooring and replace it. We have to replace those portables. And so we're either going to replace those portables with other portables, newer portables, or we're going to replace them, with permanent classrooms. At one point, this community had 3 elementary schools. And, we, didn't have the enrollment to justify Stoneman as being that 3rd elementary school. And so we eventually, sold that property to the city. But we do have more kids on our elementary campuses than we've had ever, I believe. And so that's where you're seeing things get a little tight. I think that our enrollment will level off even with the addition of those kiddos that are 2 months younger at enrollment than they were this year. At some point, it's going to level off and we'll see what our maximum capacity is going to be. But if we had to put another portable on the Carver campus, could we figure that out? Probably. But is it going to be tight? Yes, it's going to be tight. So as those kids matriculate up and we keep them enrolled, you're going to see more enrollment at the high school. We used to have 1,250 kids at the high school. So.
But the 1,250 kids are spread across different classes
Sure,
and different
yeah.
sections. So it's a
Right.
different dynamic even at the middle school as well.
Yeah.
Not as much at the middle school because they tend to stay within their grades for their classes. But I think when you're having fully contained classrooms, at a certain point you run out of classrooms.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, it's a question I think everybody's been raising
it's on
with
their mind.
me in our conversations as we talk about facilities and what we're looking to plan ahead. How are we addressing the facilities school-wide, not just in the individual grade level? So thank you.
And I'm glad we're having the
very helpful.
conversation about growing as opposed to the conversation that other districts are and superintendents are having with their boards, which is closing schools, right? A lot of that kind of conversation is taking place elsewhere. And so I'm just glad that we're talking about how do we fit these kids on our campus as opposed to, how do we close a school?
Yeah, it's been.
It's a good problem to have.
It's been impressive, our ability to grow enrollment.
Yeah.
I think it's also
speaks to the excellence of the programs that have been implemented the last few years.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say equally impressive is the fact that we're growing and we're continuing to achieve at very, very high levels across the board. And I think that that's exemplary. Unlike last year, I think we had strong growth at the elementary and not so much in secondary, but this year we're seeing strong growth, especially at the high school where we really wanted to strengthen enrollment and the programs and the student body. And so we are seeing that more with 47, 48 students at the high school and only 30 at the elementary schools.
And as we grow our high school enrollment, it helps our master schedule, so our kids can have more options
Correct.
and more ability to tap into the great opportunities. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And with more and more kids taking AP classes than ever before, to have a 93% passage rate is so incredibly impressive. I'm proud, very proud.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Proud.
I think they still have a room to grow for the legacy permit. You know, you see the 2020 to 21, only the 10. And right now it is going up to the 43. Actually, you know, because among the 5 school board, you know, with my age, I'm like an ambassador, you know, to promote, because my age, everyone, not everyone. I haven't have a grandkid, but I mean, I trying to remind them, you know, their grandkids can come back to study. So I personally I project should be more than the 43. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
we hear
it
from
will
a
be.
lot of grandparents who wish they could, their children would enroll their children in our schools, but they've moved further out. And so having to travel multiple cities to bring their students, their children to San Marino is very challenging. But if they could, they absolutely would apply for the legacy permit.
So I guess I have a question about that then. In terms of the priority, in terms of the sweet spot of our enrollment, at some point, if our legacy permit numbers continue to grow, where do we see that impacting the other permits?
That is a very good question, a question that our registrars and I met about today. Looking at our board policy and our AR on the priority list and where legacy falls. And really taking a hard look at that and thinking, do we need to revise it a little bit to make legacy a little bit more of a priority so that we can have our grandparents bring their grandchildren to our school. And so that will be forthcoming in the near future.
Another issue, I think, is the time. I think school district need to start the policy. You know, what happened later. You know, ADU they may have a more the kid come in. Yeah. So what we want to deal with. Yeah. So I think it's the time. Yeah. We need to work with CTC. What the ADU they will grow, and then we will come out of a projection. And then another issue is eligibility. You know, how they can study here, or they still not consider is a regular. You know, so those questions we need to to get an answer. Yeah.
So once the housing element is solidified by the city, I think we can, you know, work with them and hire a demographer to try and project what the impact will be to the school district, if any, depending on, you know, where their affordable housing units end up. And how many families they project will be moving in with children. We have worked with demographers before that are able to give us pretty accurate information based on all of those variables.
So thank you, Dr. Richter, for your presentation and the robust conversations. As we move forward in our agenda, unaudited actual financial report. This is for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024. The Board of Education would like to turn the presentation over to Dr. Choi to present the unaudited actual report.
Thank you and good evening, President Ryan, members of the board, student board member Ta, Superintendent Dr. Delatorre, and executive team. Tonight, I am joining you virtually to present the district's 2023-24 unaudited actuals, which are the final financial statements for the previous fiscal year. These reports allow us to compare our budgeted estimates with what we spent and received, ensuring transparency and accountability. The report reflects all revenue and expenditures, providing a clear snapshot of our financial activities as of June 30th, 2024. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our Director of Accounting, Ms. Vanji Lingat, who is also joining me tonight. Ms. Lingat and her team worked throughout the summer to perform the year-end closing process, which involves reconciling accounts for all programs while ensuring that we are fiscally compliant. For 2023-24, I'm pleased to report an improved ending balance of 5.5 million, similar to the previous year. The district continues to manage its funds effectively by using one-time, categorical, and restricted funds before tapping into the unrestricted or general funds. An excellent example of this is how we prioritize and expended ESSER funds for air conditioning upgrades, as Dr. De La Torre had mentioned earlier tonight. And while these one-time COVID funds did not fulfill all of our air conditioning needs, these funds enabled us to replace our oldest units to improve air quality and reliability for several Huntington Middle School and Valentine Elementary School classrooms. The improved ending balance was also due to ongoing savings from staffing reductions from 2021 and lower special education costs due to fewer non-public school students. Additionally, we leveraged several grants to offset spending, including federal DOJ COPS grant for camera upgrades and the state commercial dishwasher grant for upgraded kitchen equipment. In 2023-24, we also benefited from increased enrollment and average daily attendance, or ADA. And this is mainly due to growth in transitional kindergarten students and the success of innovative programs like the Dual Language Immersion Program and the Titan Medical Arts Academy. To allocate the 5.5 million ending balance, we replenished or increased the following assigned balances: 1 million each for board goals, deferred maintenance, and program innovations, 2.5 million for position salary adjustments, and 2 million for textbook adoptions. I do want to thank the Board of Education for your continued leadership in committing balances to help our school district achieve a solid financial position. While the unaudited actuals report does include a lot of financial details, they are still subject to review by external auditors who will provide their report to the board later this year. And of course, we will have another opportunity to take a look at our budget for the first interim by December 15th. At this time, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the 2023-24 unaudited actuals so that we can submit the report to the LACO office by the September 15th deadline. Thank you.
Move to approve.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jane.
So on page 7 and 9, there's a couple references to tuition. There's a reference line item, it says object codes 8710 tuition, and then down there it says transfers of apportionments, and then on page 9 it refers to outgo tuition. Can you just define that for me? I don't know what that means.
I believe I'm looking at SMUSD page 9.
So page, sorry, I know this is always like the hard part because our numbers are not the same as yours.
I think it says, does it say page?
Oh, I think there, right in the middle, it says tuition, and it's 2029 restricted funds 822.
See here.
Stephen, isn't that non-public school tuition?
I just don't know what that means.
Yeah, I think it's MPS, special education.
So is that referring to the dollars we receive from the federal government, or what is that? Where are we getting that from? What does that mean, tuition?
Are you
So
looking?
that is 8710 is generally attendance of non-resident students, and it's typically specialized programs for special ed. So
You're looking at the expenditure side, right?
Yes.
Because we don't get funding for that. We have to pay for that.
Well, I'm looking at, that's revenue.
Yeah.
So there's.
Oh, it's showing up on the revenue side?
Am I reading this wrong here?
Hi, good evening.
Yeah,
This is
Vanjie,
Benji.
Yeah, there we go.
I can answer this. Yes.
Hi. So we have some regional programs that we have housed in our district. And this is the amount of money that we're receiving for those students from
SELPA?
the SELPA program.
Is SELPA?
Yeah, so that's the SELPA
Yes.
us for those classrooms like at Huntington Middle School,
Got it.
San Marino High School.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's the self-tuition, and then later on, 2 pages later, when it refers to the outgo tuition,
That's good.
that's SELPA again.
that could be us paying for those
Our
non-public
students going
Our
to the
students
SELPA
going.
programs. Yes.
students going elsewhere.
Got it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Banji.
So we have a motion from Mrs. Gill. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. John. And with that, I would like to do roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. John,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, and Ms. Ta, student board. Okay, thank you so much. And the motion has passed. Like to turn it over to Dr. Choi to present resolution number 4. Resolution number 4, appropriations limit recalculation 2024-25 estimated appropriations limit calculation. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve resolution number 4 of 2023 to 2024, the appropriations limit recalculation, and then 2024-25 estimated appropriations limit calculation related to Proposition 4, commonly called the GAN Amendment. Dr. Choi.
Thank you, President Ryan. I think you pretty much stated what I was going to present, which is, this is a
I
routine
always do
resolution.
that.
This is a routine resolution that we do every year regarding the appropriations limit. And like President Ryan mentioned, it was created by Prop 4 in 1979. And its purpose is to make sure that the government spending is adjusted for inflation and based on population growth. So the resolution ensures that our district complies with the GAN limit, allowing us to correctly set and adjust our spending limits for this year and the next year. And it is recommended that the board approve resolution number 4.
All right.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you, Mrs. John. Thank you, Mrs. Gill. With that roll call, Mrs. Lamb,
Aye.
Mrs. John,
Aye.
Mrs. Gill,
Aye.
Mr. Chang,
Aye.
Mrs. Ryan, I, and Ms. Ta. All right, the motion has passed for the recalculation. All right. Is that it? That was it? All right. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Chang and Dr. Delatorre. Are there any last minute items? All right, so we are now adjourned. It is 8:30.